All right, guys. All right, thanks, Kelly. Thanks, Jesse, for meeting with us. We're gonna discuss the antecedent intervention paper with you guys, and hopefully we can get it all resolved or get this all discussed. Feel free to ask questions as we go along, just so that way we can clarify anything that doesn't make sense in the comments, or if you guys feel like you need to explain something further to us that maybe we didn't quite understand and why we put that comment on. So just to start off the bat, I think what you guys wrote about in our community section, defining Santa Fe, New Mexico as a people was really great. You know, you went into depth about the demographic and the different populations, different ethnicities. I also think you guys did a great job of talking about, you know, work life, education, and also into the elements of life that do affect people in Santa Fe. So that part was all really great. We did mention that because of the population, that having the antecedent intervention also be maybe in like a different language, such as maybe Spanish or maybe what other kind of languages that might be spoken in Santa Fe would be cool. And I could definitely help out with Spanish, just because I assume that might be the most prevalent alternate language spoken. So that would be really cool. I thought that would be really great. And
Do you, I have a question. Yeah. Do you mean like the first couple sentences as the intro?
You mean
Like having it in Spanish?
Oh, I meant like the whole antecedent intervention paper as a whole. So explaining, yeah, explaining the intervention, like visual supports and all that stuff. I think maybe it would be cool to have that in Spanish, just in case there is someone in the care staff that does only speak Spanish and provide services to families who only speak Spanish.
Yeah, I think that's a really great idea. I really like that.
Cool. Yeah, I'm glad you like that. That's one of the members alluded to that, and I think that was a good idea too. All right, but yeah, but our community was great though. It looked really awesome. Yeah, if we go down to agencies, I think was the next step. Cool. All right, yeah, here we go. All right, agencies, you guys also did a really good job describing what our clinic would look like. Definitely seems like we're going to have an ABA clinic that provides services one-to-one, also provides services using different formats of interventions, which is really cool. We thought it would be cool that if you guys could provide maybe a terminology sheet at the beginning of the paper, maybe in between agencies or in between community or before community, that would help provide some sort of definitions for some of the language that we kind of just like throw in there that maybe some of the care staff might not understand. And I put some of those terms in there right there in that comment. Yeah, you can choose those. You can also look at some other ones. They're definitely in there, and I do think they're really cool, and they do provide good insight into what the clinic will look like. But as for the care staff, they might assume like, oh, I don't know what that is yet. So maybe if I get some background information on that, it'll help me feel a little bit better about what I'm going to be doing inside this clinic. But yeah,
okay.
Yeah, but yeah, perfect explanation of what a day-to-day looks like at the clinic. Different examples of what's transitioning. I will say that in the first paragraph of agency, it says your child will learn and practice these skills. It looks like you guys are talking more so towards parents and not towards the care staff. The paper is mentioned to have a focus towards the care staff that are going to be providing services at the clinic. So maybe just like rephrase that language so it sounds like you are talking more towards the staff that are working at the clinic. But yeah, I think that's it for agency too. Agency was really well written. Alrighty. Oh yeah, do you guys have any questions so far? I feel like I'm kind of going on.
I don't think so. Jesse, do you have any?
I don't think so either. I think that was a good catch. So I want to thank you for catching that. I know we've tried to look for all the identity first, but I don't know if we necessarily checked for talking to the care staff. So yes, that is a good thought.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. Yeah, and it's definitely sprinkled in there here and there. There's different sections of the paper that are written where it is directed more towards like a parent's perspective. And yeah, it's a quick fix. I think just rephrasing it would be really cool. And then if we jump into identifying and defining like antecedent intervention, this is kind of where I think we got a little bit, I don't want to say we got picky. We kind of just started talking about maybe the idea of saying visual support might seem a little general, or it might seem like you guys are alluding to providing different kinds of interventions for visual support. So you guys mentioned like first then, visual schedules, visual boundaries, and we thought like that's really cool. It's really cool that you want to use all those examples for visual supports, but in the perspective of the care staff who are barely learning how to use the antecedent intervention, that it might be a little bit overwhelming and it might hurt the procedural integrity of them using that intervention as so many different kind of examples. So we thought maybe just starting off with like visual schedules in general, just saying visual schedules having activity listed, or I think someone also mentioned like having first then boards combined with activity schedules. So just having it all together the entire time throughout the antecedent intervention would be a really good way to kind of stick to one thing, just so that way we don't run the risk of overwhelming like the care staff.
Okay, I think we kind of just decided on visual supports as a whole because our group, we kind of talked it over that you can use visual supports like as visual prompts, visual schedules first, then we kind of just stuck to that, but we will definitely look into that, breaking that down more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I specifically wrote this section, so I might have not come across as clear as I meant to, but from my like perspective of it, I guess we're kind of talking about visual supports, but I wanted to give examples of different visual supports. So maybe I could word that, I feel like I'm yelling, wow. Maybe I could word that in a different way, but I think like you can see our comments. I didn't know it's still on there, but we were discussing putting some options. I think, like you said, visual support, the term is so broad that by just saying that and then giving, other than giving examples, might be too broad. So like maybe there is a better way to put it, or
maybe, I'm sorry, Jen, go ahead.
Sorry. No, yeah, so we were just mainly making sure that as we're reading the antecedent, that it was one procedure. That's what I think our assumption was when we were going to see what the intervention was going to be suggesting. But we're seeing multiple, like you said, multiple examples that as a whole do fall into that umbrella of visual supports. I think it's just further going along with making sure the staff is using one particular one was where we were getting confused. So we just want to know which one is the set in stone one that we're applying for this DCS in this clinic.
okay, because that's, I guess, where I was confused. I thought we were describing a type of antecedent intervention, not specific set in stone antecedent intervention. So, okay, I understand that now.
Yeah.
Moving forward, we state the examples, like different examples, visual supports can be used for A, B, and C, and then say, but here we're going to focus on visual schedules or first then boards or whatever we kind of decide. Is that what you were gonna?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was gonna say, like maybe just start with one specific type of visual support, like a visual schedule. And then once we get high procedural integrity with the visual schedules and with the clients that are working with our direct care staff, and the direct care staff are also like carrying out the procedures with high integrity, then we could also introduce like first then, and also introduce other things that relate to visual supports, but also use other interventions as well.
Yeah, that sounds good. We can definitely look into changing the language around that. Thank you for that feedback. All right,
Yeah, of course, but I mean, the visual supports examples are really cool. They're really, really nice. Everything is like, it makes sense. There isn't anything that would seem too confusing about it. It's just, I thought it would be a little bit overwhelming for the care staff to see like, oh, it can be this way, and that way. Like, which one are we gonna do?
Yeah, you're right. And for it to be somebody that, I think this was for people that don't have much experience in ABA as the direct care staff. So that, yeah, that's a good point. Thank you. Are we ready to go down to the
Oh, yeah,
advantage?
of course.
Okay.
All right, and for advantages and disadvantages, this kind of just goes based off of what we kind of just talked about, where it gives like advantages for visual supports and visual schedules. But it is nice that it's all backed by research, kind of what you guys are talking about for the advantages of visual supports. And that's great because we do want to provide the care staff actual evidence as to why we are suggesting the intervention and not just say like, oh, this is going to work because we are BCBAs and we know it's worked in the past. It's something to reference back, which is pretty cool. As for the disadvantages, there are some in there where we kind of just like thought maybe were a little confusing just for the wording. So like bullet 2, it says they may not necessarily be customized based to the learner's understanding. We thought that kind of contradicted what was said in like the advantages where it could be customized or it could be like used for each individual person. Because I mean, essentially visual support would work for a person if we can customize it appropriately, right? And then on bullet 5, it says some visuals may not be available. We didn't necessarily understand that part. We were assuming it's because you guys were thinking about like due to lack of resources that we might not have, where it's not going to be available for the children. Is that what you guys were trying to paint to?
Yeah, I think that's a good thing to compare them to the advantages. I know that Natasha was waiting on a citation for those first 3 bullet points, so I don't know where she got that information from. I think she was waiting for a librarian to get to her. But we can double check that second one for sure. And then, yes, I think adding that section due to lack of resources, I think is good, just due to like the environment and the surroundings of where we are located as our agency. That might be different.
Yeah, it's important to note that, dude, definitely. And then let's see, what's that other point? Oh yeah, bullet point number 6 says some visuals may not be exactly what the learner needs. We also found that part a little confusing, just because we were also still thinking in that same aspect where the visual support is going to be specific to each learner. So would we make something that isn't going to be effective for that child, or should we reconsider the whole use of visual support for that child anyways? All right, let's take it down to behavioral mechanism if we can, please. All right, but yeah, this part is right here. This is just the wording parts, mentioning things in terms of perspective of parents, mentioning that level 1 autistic child could look very different than a level 3 autistic child. That's just all just wording stuff that I think you guys could look at, ponder, maybe like collaborate a little bit more on, and maybe rephrase it or take it out altogether. But that's just stuff that I think is yeah, just wording. So I don't think it requires a lot of discussion unless you guys see some of the comments and you guys want to talk about them.
I don't have any specific questions on that as of right now. No. Jesse, do you?
No, I don't have any specific questions either. We can definitely reach out though if we have any questions about that section, but wording, yeah, that makes sense. Just kind of rephrasing some things.
Mm-hmm.
Overall, are we ready to scroll down?
Yep, thank you.
Okay, so with the PAC checklist, we were really impressed with the tasks that were listed for the antecedent intervention with the yes/no checklist. It highlighted everything that was needed in order for making sure that the staff that you are observing is going to be hitting all those marks that you need to make sure it's run correctly. The main thing that we just wanted to see, it'd probably be helpful for the clinic to know who is the observer, so like which staff is going to be the observer versus who is going to be the observee. And then also we need to understand like what is the point of having the PAC? Because if we just give it to them and we're like, here you go, make sure you fill this out, make sure it matches up to 80%, it might not really help them understand why it's necessary. So if you could just probably put a little brief, I guess, description of what a PAC is meant for, that would be very helpful for the clinic. That way their supervisors, who would probably be the observer, can explain it better to the staff to have them understand better. And also with the critical points, we all agreed also those were all the critical points necessary. Nothing else needed to be added there. So that was all good points there.
Yeah, Jen, did you just mean like maybe adding a couple sentences to the top?
Yeah,
Okay,
basically
yeah.
just like describing why it's needed and how it will be applied.
For sure. That's a good idea to kind of define that.
Yeah, and I think you brought up a good point, because a lot of the time there's different wording with it, because essentially it's almost like IOA.
So again, MO checklist, again, we thought that there were really good points here, especially the value altering and the behavior altering with the direct and indirect. Again, that's really important to know with MOs. So good job on that in order to pair that up. And also the precursors and how to support, those were all really good as well. I think the only confusion that might apply here is that with the assignment, as you see here, Paul made a comment here just to highlight that the professor did say, then create a tool that is user-friendly so that care providers can efficiently share information with staff at your center about fluctuations in MOs. So again, this is really good. We just didn't know if when you guys made this, it was meant as a circle chart. What was the, what's the application for this checklist? Again, like with the PAC. So we just want to know what was this meant for the staff. And maybe if it's not that tool that is needed for the complete intervention paper, maybe something else needs to be added after this in order to make sure that that tool is being effectively used as well. Did you guys happen to have anything in mind for that?
I guess I didn't. I must have missed that part. Creating the user-friendly tool. So from you just explaining that, that's kind of looking like some kind of visual for the staff to kind of like a quick glance through. Is that kind of what that would be?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's something also, it's kind of like ABC data with antecedent behavior consequence, so that there's also those variables that you guys highlight here, like hunger or thirst, sleep deprivation. These are things that you check. I know with when the client comes in, and the points that are made here for precursor and setting events, those are all good points. It's just that the way the checklist is set here, it doesn't define if we're using this checklist as that tool or not, or if there needs to be something extra. Does that clarify it a little better?
That does. So another just question for just to talk about, would this then need adjusted based on taking out the first then board and the visual boundaries? Would you?
It might need to, yes.
Okay.
I think how the support is built there looks like it's for regulation purposes, which is really good for the direct care staff to have, so it's consistent. So yeah, again, it's just to make sure that, again, everything is going to be procedurally accurate. So again, with the multiple visual supports, make sure we're defining what it is. And again, yeah, just having a tool that selects what was done in the moment or what needs to be taken care of.
Okay, yeah, for sure.
I think otherwise that is the MO checklist feedback. Yeah, I think that was the end of everything. And then, yeah, the references were perfectly aligned. And then if you go after the references page, we did input our feedback page in case you guys need to refer back to that with a little wording visual. It's there in the end, just a little blip there. And then, yeah, so thanks for meeting with us. We hope that the feedback that we gave y'all was insightful, as well as supporting you in a way to have a really successful way to provide this to the clinic.
Yes, thank you all for all your feedback. It was definitely good to have, and we will definitely look into everything.
forward
Yes,
to.
thank you. Thank you, guys. It's really helpful to have another set of eyes on something sometimes.
Yes.
Cool, guys. All right, I'm gonna stop it.